Imagine waking up one morning, heading to your desk and hitting print. A few hours later, you hear a tiny squeak. You look over, and instead of a plastic model or a coffee mug, out pops a tiny breathing walking creature. Yep, 3D printers creating living beings. Sounds absolutely bonkers, right? Well, today we're diving deep into what could happen if this sci-fi fantasy became our everyday reality. Don't worry, no one's printing your annoying neighbor. Yet. So, how could this even be possible? Isn't this just stuff from movies? Well, not entirely. Scientists are already 3D printing organs, tissues, and tiny biological structures. They use something called bioinks, which are basically gels loaded with living stem cells. They lay these cells down layer by layer on a biodegradable scaffold, kind of like building with Legos, but with actual life. We're talking about functional heart tissue that beats on its own, cartilage for repairs, and even mini-organs called organoids that are used for drug testing and research. Now combine that with gene editing technology like CRISPR. Theoretically, you could edit the genes of those cells before you print them. Want your printed tissue to have a specific trait? You could program it right into the DNA. Of course, there are massive ethical and technical limits. We aren't printing pet dragons tomorrow, at least not legally. Right now, you can print a tiny simplified version of an ear or a kidney patch. But your dream of a pocket-sized T-Rex, you might have to wait a few decades, or maybe just settle for one in your VR headset for now. But let's suspend disbelief for a moment. Let's fast forward to a world where 3D printing living things is as common as making a cup of coffee. What could go wrong or right? First, the pet industry would be turned upside down. Forget dog breeds. People would be printing custom puppies with perfect temperaments. You could have neon-colored cats that glow in the dark, or maybe even those tiny dragons we talked about. Just be careful what you print. A fire-breathing hamster might just void your home insurance policy. Imagine the classifieds. For sale, lightly used griffin, house-trained, sheds feathers twice a year. Then, you'd have the hobbyists. People would create miniature ecosystems right on their desks. Tiny 3D printed jungles teeming with life. You could sit back and watch your own little world unfold. Look at my mini jungle. Oh, wait. My tiny printed cheetah just ate the micro-printed zebra. Circle of life, I guess. The level of customization would be insane. You could design entire food chains from scratch. And what about the workplace? It would be chaos. Labs could print tiny, specialized creatures to help with experiments, but they'd probably just start stealing snacks from the break room. Imagine the office 3D printer accidentally producing a batch of sentient coffee beans that unionize and refuse to be brewed. Your Monday morning just got a lot more complicated. Productivity might plummet, but office drama would be at an all-time high. Now, imagine this technology scales up even further. Suddenly, every home has a print your own life button. The line between biology and digital fabrication completely blurs. People could print custom companions tailored to their exact emotional needs, replacing pets or maybe even co-workers. Sorry, Dave. We're replacing you with a capybara that's better at data entry and much calmer in meetings. But with great printing power comes great potential for chaos. What happens when someone gets the code wrong? You try to print a rabbit for your kid, but a stray line of code from a parrot file gets mixed in. Now you have a squawking, feathered creature that hops around laying colorful eggs. These accidental mutants could become a real problem. Your backyard could turn into a wildlife sanctuary overnight. Or a complete disaster zone. Warning labels on bioprinters would be longer than the user manuals. Okay, let's pull back from the fun and get real for a second. 3D printing. A complex living organism isn't magic. Biology is incredibly complicated. A printed creature isn't just a collection of cells. It needs a vascular system for nutrients, a nervous system to function, and a complex environment to grow and develop. It is not like printing a plastic keychain that's ready to use right off the print bed. We are talking decades, if not centuries, of research before we could print a fully functional mini dragon, if it's even possible at all. What you'd more likely get if you tried to print a desktop T-Rex today is a pulsating blob of undifferentiated stem cells. It might be technically alive, but it would be a long way from chasing a laser pointer around your office. But hey, a guy can dream, right? The realistic implications are still world-changing, just in a different way. The medical benefits are enormous. Custom-printed organs could end transplant waiting lists forever. Printing patient-specific cancerous tissue could allow doctors to test different treatments without harming the patient. The potential to heal and extend human life is the real magic here. But with that comes profound ethical dilemmas. At what point does a printed collection of cells gain sentience? What rights does a printed life form have? If we can print and discard life so easily, what does that do to our own humanity? And what about the environmental impact? Releasing custom-designed organisms into the wild could have catastrophic, unforeseen consequences on existing ecosystems. But let's not get too bogged down in reality. Let's dive back into the what-if craziness for a minute. Picture the public chaos. You're at a coffee shop, and a woman walks in with a dog-sized dragon on a leash. It gets excited and starts chasing the foam on someone's latte. Or imagine the school hallways when kids start bringing their home-printed creations to show and tell. It would be a miniature Jurassic Park with hybrid creatures running amok during recess. My griffin can fly higher than your Pegasus. Workplace helpers could become a reality, but not the efficient kind. You'd have tiny, printed creatures designed to sort files that instead spend their days stealing paper clips, tangling computer cords, and pulling harmless pranks on your boss. It would be a new kind of adorable, frustrating office life. So, what if 3D printing could create living beings? It would be fun, dangerous, and totally chaotic. It would be a world filled with wonder and probably a lot of new insurance claims. It would definitely be all three. But as we imagine a future with fire-breathing hamsters, let's remember that the real science happening right now is already exciting enough. The quest to print organs and cure diseases is a story that's just as mind-blowing. If you enjoyed exploring the wild, weird world of 3D printed life, make sure you hit that subscribe button and join us here at SciNex. We dive into more mind-blowing, hilarious, and thought-provoking what-if scenarios every week. Who knows? Tomorrow, maybe your printer will print your lunch, or a tiny dinosaur. Thanks for watching.